Pixel phones get better with age, and the Pixel 7, I think, is no exception. The reason I'm saying this, and I've talked about this previously in the past, there was a period of time last year when a big tech reviewer guy by the name of MKBHD was talking about how he didn't recommend the Pixel 6 because it had so many problems, and I'm sure a lot of people agree with him, but there was a statement where he had made saying that he feels like Pixels get worse over time, like the experience, and they get bogged down and they just don't run the way they're supposed to. And I don't find that to be the case at all. I've been using Pixel phones for a long time. I've had all of them with the exception of the original Google Pixel phone, Pixel 2, Pixel 3, Pixel 4, 5, the whole gambit, all of them. And here's the thing when it comes to these phones. And I think this is something that we can attest to, especially with Android 12 over the last year, Android 13 now. Yeah, there were some problems when the Pixel 6 came out, but I don't think that's a particularly good reason to say, okay, Pixels suck. They just get worse with age. Google tries very, very hard to make them better and improve them, but they're always updating the phone. So here's the thing. When you get a Google Pixel phone, especially the 6, the 7, you get 3 years of operating system updates, 5 years of security patches. They don't just leave them out to rot on the vine. It's not like the fruit is left out on the vine, it shrivels up and dries and it's just useless. Like, it's actively, they cultivate and they do things to improve it all the time. Case in point, one, you get the monthly security patch. So whenever they put out the monthly security patch, it's not just for security. It used to kind of just be for security, but if there's something they need to fix, they actively fix things. There's a lot of stuff that they fixed over the last year. A lot of system UI stuff, a lot of stuff with the fingerprint sensors, things with the camera, things with different apps. They actively fix that stuff. And then every quarter they come out with a feature drop. So when the feature drop comes out, this keeps the phones new, refreshed, updated with lots of new stuff. So case in point, we just had the first quarterly update for the Pixel 7 here, December 1st. And we got new backgrounds, we got different enhancements to the menu, combining the security and privacy center. They're adding spatial audio soon. I think probably the next update, either March or it might come out before then. I've heard some things about it. It's available in QPR2 beta right now. If you're in the beta profile, you can actually test out. You can test that stuff out, and that's cool too because they have a beta program. The beta program is always ahead of the official release stuff, so you can test out new features there, which is kind of a cool thing. It's pretty easy to opt in and out. And also, we just got other cool stuff like the VPN. And the VPN wasn't even part of the quarterly feature drop. They promised it whenever the phone was announced. They released it basically December 1st. It actually came out a couple of days before then, ahead of the scheduled time for it to launch. So there's a lot of neat things that they do. Also, we got clear calling. Clear calling is a nice, neat feature that they have. I'm going to make a specific video on that. We'll talk more about that. But it just makes your call stuff better. You know, block stuff out in the background, better isolation for the microphone. Clear calling. And that's something that's important. It's funny, you would think that phone calls would not be something that people care about nowadays, but really they do. And I get these in all the videos, and I think a lot of tech reviewers probably lose sight of this because so many of us text, we use WhatsApp, we use Slack, we use iMessage, whatever. A lot of people don't just sit there and talk on the phone all the time. But when you want to talk on the phone, you want it to work well, and I still get folks that are like, hey, how's the call quality? And you're sitting there going, call quality? Who makes phone calls, right? And I'm just as guilty as a lot of other folks. I don't always talk about call quality in the videos because I don't make a lot of phone calls. My kids call me a lot, or my wife will call me, but it's not like, oh, I'm out at the mall, it's busy, I'm out at a restaurant. I mean, I'm not taking phone calls there. I'm replying to messages saying, hey, I'll call you later. But there are people who, when traveling, let's say you're at the airport, you're out walking around, you're picking your kid up from school, there's a lot of places where you get a lot of noise, a lot of interference, and where you really need to make a good phone call. So clear calling, all that stuff. So there's just a lot of nice things that Google, very thoughtful approach, very systemic in the way that they do this stuff. Not only do they maintain the software is maintained for 5 years. You get 3 versions of operating system updates, and then you get the 5 years of monthly security patches. And that's a lot better than a lot of folks. Like if you look over at Motorola, yeah, they give you a pretty decent amount of time, but you get bi-monthly security patches. Or some brands might give you a quarterly patch, or you might get a patch every month for the first 2 or 3 years. And then the last couple of years, they slack off, you get like a quarterly security patch. So Google is very committed to making sure their phones run, making sure they're protected and they're safe and they're secure. They run for a long time. And now Google has more control over that than ever now that they're putting their own silicon inside of their phones, which means that you're going to get better unified support, unified language, like everything. it's hopefully going to take the platform to the next level, which was the whole plan. And you see a lot of other places trying to do this except for Samsung, which I think Samsung is kind of reevaluating how they're doing their own in-house chip. And I think they're going to change it to something else. The Exynos really doesn't have a good reputation, and rightfully so, because the Exynos mostly sucks. But you've got other platforms out there. It's not just, okay, everybody uses the Qualcomm, right? Qualcomm made chips for everybody for the longest time, and then now it's okay, you got the Qualcomm Snapdragon and most of the Android phones, but you also got the MediaTeks, and then you got the Apple processor over in their phones. You've got the, at least had the Exynos in some Samsung phones, and then we've got the Tensor chip here. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. You get a lot of this kind of proprietary, customized chip experiences that really help these phone manufacturers dial in and give you the best of what their products are designed for. So I contend that Google phones actually get better over time, not worse. And this isn't like before. We could say universally a long time ago that most Android phones got pretty bad after a year. Basically all the way up until like the S9. It was like, okay, I've had the phone for a year, and the phone going to the next year just is nothing like it was when I first got it. Or after about 8 to 10 months, you might want to consider doing a factory reset or clean some stuff up because it would start getting bogged down and things like that. So we're not in the land of old Android phones. We're in the land of new Android phones, more support, and the chips are more powerful than ever. They've got all sorts of great things going for them. So I don't think that really there's any sort of a case whatsoever to justify saying, oh, Pixel phones get worse with time, especially when you look at all the other phones out on the market. They certainly don't get worse than OnePlus or Samsung or Motorola or Sony. They're pretty much at the top. They're pretty much at the top of best support, best longevity, and best long-term experience whenever it comes to phones. I mean, Samsung's up there now. They're basically kind of tied about neck and neck just when you look at the way they do things. But I think it's pretty safe to say that the Google Pixel 7 will be a very good phone for a very long time, and that Google Pixel phones do not get worse with time. They actually, in fact, get better. And like I said, I've been using them for a long time. I can pretty much attest to that. And if you look at what happened this last year with the Pixel 6, the Pixel 6 experience at the middle to end of this year was phenomenally light years better than it was in the beginning. We had so many problems at the beginning, and of course that was not so much all Pixels across the board. It was Android 12 and specifically the first stab at things when it came to the Google Tensor chip and the Pixel 6 phone. They changed a lot of things, and then they wanted to launch them both at the same time. So apparently, I guess there were some unknowns there. I don't know what the issue was, but it was just terrible. And then also software support, a lot of apps were crashing and things. It was just bad. So that phone, the Pixel 6, I think now is a very good phone. I thought it had a lot of potential. I thought it was a good enough phone, and I thought for the price and the value and the things, I had a pretty good experience with it. But I know a lot of people that did not, and I had some frustrating consequences too, like, well, my haptic feedback getting messed up because Google decided to change things. But completely different story. The ship has been righted. Android 13, the Pixel 6 is a far better experience than it was when it first came out. And I think by the end of next year, by the end of 2023, the Pixel 6 will be an even better experience than it was at the end of 2022, even a year later. And then beyond with the Pixel 7. So that's kind of my case for it. But I do think that if you have one of these phones, you can trust and expect that it's going to be supported, maintained, updated, and a good working phone for quite a long time. So that's all I got in this video. If you have any questions or comments or contrary opinions or thoughts you want to interject, please go down in the comment section. We can talk about it. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.